Hi ladies and gentlemen, today is December 3rd, 2016, and I'm a little under the weather like a lot of people are right now, so I'm not going to make a long video. As a matter of fact, I'm going to just say a couple of things and then refer you to the links in the description box below. Number one, as I said in Vivification versus Lassitude, if you haven't seen that video of mine, please go view it. We're not out of the woods yet. The establishment is doing everything it can. You should be seeing that. Attempts of war in between Turkey and Syria, which would bring in NATO and Russia. The fact that Turkey is no longer a secular state, it is an Islamic state, allied with Saudi Arabia against any secular government there in the Middle East. It's not what it appears to be on the surface. Okay, this is another way to prevent us from shaking off the New World Order. You've got the situation with the voter recount going on, and the fact that, you know, Pennsylvania, they said all the time limit has passed, and yet they're still going along with it. So, you know, when the elite and the establishment want something, it happens regardless of whether it's lawful or not. And also the fact that there are a lot of things that could happen to Donald Trump between now and the inauguration. He's a fighter. He'll keep going, but a lot of things could occur still to prevent that. It's amazing to me that 50% of this country, and that's really what it is if we look at it, you know, we weren't set up to be a democracy. And I will say this isn't a democracy. This isn't majority rules, especially to rule, to do injustices and tyranny to the others. We're supposed to be a Republican form of government, a constitutional republic, and that's why the voting system was set up the way it was. But regardless, this is going to be a bad time, so everybody just buckle up and get ready. I hope Trump makes it into the White House, but I'm not certain at this point that that's going to happen. I know he is. He's confident all the time. But at any rate, I wanted to say that. And then a lot of people have wondered why I haven't commented on the situation in North Dakota with the DAPL protests and all that. And there are reasons, and I'm just going to say a couple things here and then refer you to that below. Number one, I'm very much for decentralization, and the two guys that are now leading the veterans there, Michael A. Wood Jr. and Wesley Clark Jr. Wesley Clark Jr., yes, the son of General Wesley Clark, who was involved in Waco, who bombed Yugoslavia, and who's also said publicly that anybody that disagrees with the United States deserves to be in prison. Okay? Very, very bad. So, at any rate, one of the things that I concern myself with are who leads a situation. And when I was at Bundy Ranch in 2014, I considered that to be decentralized. It was like people just showing up. There may have been some organization on the malicious side, but as far as the types of people that were showing up, they were doing it because spiritually they felt it necessary. That's what we need, decentralization, unless a good government, a good state or county government is standing against the tyranny of the federal government. Then we can ally with something like that in an organizational deal, but I think anything else is dangerous, and probably you can be led down the wrong path, which is why in 2014, and I was criticized for it, I didn't ally myself with the Operation American Spring by Colonel Riley. First of all, I thought that, you know, the whole thing was very poorly planned for an 06 to be in charge of. It just didn't make any sense to me that it was so poor. And two, there were other people. Number two, there were other people involved that I was suspicious of, and I won't go into that. If you want to go back and look at those videos I made at the time, you'll understand. The leadership there, as far as I was concerned, was questionable as to what the real motivations were. Okay, being that said, down below there is the first link is to, well, they're both in Oath Keepers, but the first one is basically about the situation with the DAPL and the whole deal. I disagree with the writer on the fact that you know, it's breaking law to stand up against the law enforcement corruption there and abuse of force. If they should be there at all. I haven't looked at it closely enough to even understand why they would be there when it's on a reservation. You know, that's off limits, but I don't know those details, so I'm passing on it. All I know is that the article is pretty good about the general circumstances, although I would disagree with the reasons not to get involved that the North Dakota Veterans Group is bringing out, but that's an issue for them at this point. The other link that I'd like you to go to is Brandon Smith's article, which is linked below, from Alt Market and Oath Keepers. It's called The Real Reasons Why Another American Civil War is Possible. I agree with him 100% on everything he says there from a military standpoint. I don't know if he has a military background. I've had contact with Brandon in the past, and I plan on again here in the near future. But I think he's just very up on studying and understanding the issues, and probably very spiritually oriented too, so he'll see the same kind of thing. I like the fact that he does say decentralization is the necessary way to approach these things. The difficulties that Soros and the authoritarians have caused our nation and other nations around the world, all of those things are horrendous, criminal, demonic. What Soros did in Ukraine, delegitimizing the duly elected government there and destabilizing the country using a color revolution, he and the people like Hillary and the New World Order in general are now conducting on the United States. It won't be the same, but it's still going to be ugly, and I just needed to make sure that I addressed that and identified that that is something that's happening. One final point I have to insert here is that, to my understanding, the situation with DAPL in North Dakota is on Native American land. I'm not sure of the jurisdiction here, but my point is that the sheriff, the local sheriff, came in and told these people to disperse. Again, I don't know the jurisdictional situation, but the sheriff apparently made that order. That situation never happened at Bundy Ranch, which is very critical. The sheriff never, I never heard it, I never saw it, never told the demonstrators to disperse. Not at the demonstration area, and not at the final standoff by I-15 near the federal corrals, where the feds threatened to shoot the people as they came up. Michael Lynch from Fox News verifies that information. But at any rate, never was an order of dispersal given by the sheriff's office, Las Vegas Metro Police Department, Sheriff Gillespie, ever. Also, in that same vein, the undersheriff, I think that was his title, Lombardo, is seen in a video at the final standoff at I-15 talking to Ammon Bundy and just telling him basically to keep his people from getting out of control, to keep the lid on things. Again, never an order to disperse, not even off of I-15 at the final standoff. So that's almost the sheriff at that point agreeing that the demonstrators had a right to be there, despite the fact that the BLM was saying otherwise. I might also bring up the fact that there was the First Amendment area that the BLM had set up just off of I-15 and the exit to Bunkerville. And even the Governor Sandoval of Nevada, said that that was a travesty, that that's an infringement on the First Amendment. So my point is, nobody having law enforcement authority in that area with the sheriff's office ever gave an order to disperse. Interesting. So that's another issue with the North Dakota thing that makes it a little more difficult as far as I'm concerned. In Malheur, as much as I agreed with the protest as far as the march, I thought that was great. Taking over the building, as you all know, I felt like that was wrong. I'm not going to go on all the details of that. But again, the local sheriff representing the local people. Even if it was all corrupt, the sheriff ordered them to leave, ordered the dispersal. So if we're going to say that if the sheriff orders the feds out, they need to obey it, then of course the demonstrators have to be the same way, and then you have to use other means to bring your matter to a head. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up as well. Okay, because I'm not really up to par and I don't feel like I can talk any longer, you're probably saying, well, you've talked a lot already. Please forgive me for just pointing you to these two links below, but I'd appreciate it if you'd read them. They're not that long, and you should find them